On this episode of the Bronze Medalist podcast, we talk about Memento Mori by Marduk.
Remember, life is not a clock, it's an hourglass.
Hitting us with a quote from the album. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Medalist podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal and we like to talk about it. And for some reason, you decided to throw in a quote from the album.
Mixing it up.
As if that's something that we've done every week.
We've never done that, no.
And remember, folks. Now, kids, what have we learned today? Life is not, what's the quote? I already forgot.
Life is not a clock, it's an hourglass.
Life is not a clock, it's an hourglass.
Right.
I guess because it doesn't go around.
A clock keeps going, or an hourglass, once it's done, it's done.
You can flip it over. You just need someone else to flip it over.
That's true.
You need someone to rotate you.
I'm going to do the second half upside down.
Have you gotten your tires rotated? I mean, you're about to turn 50.
Yeah.
Are you going to have your tires rotated?
Certainly. Well, you saw what I got in the mail, right?
Yeah, you showed it to me.
Yeah.
You walked into the studio the other day.
I'm so proud.
It was like, look what I got in the mail. I've been asked to join an exclusive club. And then you showed me your fucking AARP letter.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mocked my ex-wife about it. I went over to pick up, we have kids together still, so I'm over there all the time. And I saw her mail, her correspondence, because, she gets stuff from AAR because she's a member.
Okay.
And I said, God, look at you being an old person. She says, mock all you want. I get some deep discounts here.
And just you wait.
Yeah.
You'll be excited. Yeah. But you've got a big few weeks up ahead of you.
I do.
In preparation for your 50th.
Yeah.
What are the plans? I don't know what that was, but
something fell. Okay, here's the plans. Next Wednesday, is it Wednesday night? Yeah. Your cat knocked stuff off. She's not supposed to be up there, right?
The desk. She knocked my headphones case off of the. She's not usually that type of cat either. That she'll jump up onto stuff and knock things off.
Right.
Anyway,
I'm that kind of cat.
Continue.
Next Wednesday night after work, I get on an aeroplane.
An aeroplane over the sea.
No, not over the sea.
Like
the States.
Like that Neutral Milk Hotel album. That's the only one I know.
I fly to Newark. That's where I'm going.
Of Many Saints.
Newark of Many Saints.
You're doing a Sopranos tour.
I'm going to Newark, and then a friend of mine.
Full of references tonight.
Yeah, this is entertaining.
Is it?
I have a friend of mine who lives in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
He's going to drive to Newark, which is apparently only an hour away.
I mean, it's all.
everything there.
I feel like everything on the East Coast is an hour away.
Right.
Depending upon what it's, by some mode of transportation.
Right.
Everything in that whole massive area is an hour away.
Right.
Yeah. Tiny states, a bunch of big cities very close to each other.
So she's going to come pick me up. And then we're going to stay at their house Wednesday night. And then Thursday, we're going to drive to Punxsutawney.
And see the large rodent?
Yeah, I believe it's a rodent.
A groundhog is a rodent.
A whistle pig. It's also called.
Why?
And a woodchuck. It's also called a woodchuck.
The woodchuck. I don't get the woodchuck. Do they eat wood? Do they eat wood?
I don't think so.
And
they don't chuck it either.
Why whistle pig?
Have you ever heard one?
I suppose they do make kind of I think a
squeaky sound.
Yeah, like a sort of squeaky screech.
It's a little fat rodent that makes a squeak. So it's a whistle pig.
They look kind of I'm trying to remember exactly. They look kind of like a bigger, fatter marmot, don't they?
Yeah, bigger, fatter marmot.
That had the cadence almost of like CoverGirl. Bigger, fatter marmot. And there's just a chunky little rodent
right
that like winks at the camera or something. I don't know. So after you go to Punxsutawney, then what are you doing?
Then we're going to stay at a hotel over the weekend, and I'm going to the Groundhog Festival because my 50th birthday will be on February 2nd on Groundhog's Day. So I'm going to get up early in the morning and they're going to do the thing at Gobbler's Knob, which best name for a landmark ever.
Oh God, it's so funny.
And they're going to be gobbling knob. And then
oh, are they?
They're gobnobblers. So they
gobnobblers.
So anyway, they're going to do that, and then I have to pay Beth a whole bunch of money.
Okay.
Because she's bought us tickets to a lot of different activities throughout the day. The next couple of days, actually. I mean, and a lot of them involve drinking way too much. And at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm gonna go have sausage and eggs, and it's gonna come with a mimosa and a beer, and then there's a special club you go to, and it's gonna be just a weekend in Punxsutawney.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great time. Been looking for. I bought the hotel reservation I got a year ago.
Oh wow.
Because I mean, have to do it.
I suppose, yeah. It's a popular event.
It's like Taylor Swift tickets.
Going to see this fat rat.
Yeah,
it's the equivalent of Taylor Swift tickets.
Yeah, exactly. Because they got, as soon as they become available, people gobble up the hotel rooms.
They do. They like the same way they gobble those knobs.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're finally getting to do the Pennsylvania trip that we never did.
Yeah.
That time we were gonna go to the Philadelphia Beer and Metal Festival in March of 2020.
And then something happened.
Something it's weird.
Yeah.
I don't remember what happened.
Yeah, I don't know.
Come to think of it, 2020 to 2023 is there's like a weird haze.
Yeah.
I don't it all happened really quickly, but took an eternity. I don't know.
It's like that part of the tape drive in my head was exposed and got too near a magnet. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what happened in there, but something happened and we didn't go to Pennsylvania.
Yeah, right.
And then they rescheduled it to a point where we probably could have gone, but we still didn't go. We still didn't go.
Right.
Because why would we do something?
Do
something?
Yeah, no.
Us?
No
thanks.
I don't think so. As soon as somebody asks me to do something, I have this catalog in the back of my head. Okay, which excuse am I going to give?
There is something that I identify with really, really strongly, which is people have talked about this before. If you are a certain type of person, there is nothing better in the world than the feeling of canceling plans.
Yeah, you hear that? Yeah, that's sort of a meme on the internet
of like, oh, I have an excuse to not go to this.
Right.
Here we get like. It just feels good. It feels, and when you have a legitimate reason to not go, that makes it feel even better. Because I mean, I feel like there are some people who are like, I'm lying about this, but I don't care.
Right.
I do care. Like I have to have at least somewhat legitimate reason to not go to a thing, or I will feel awful, even if no one will ever know that it was a lie. I will hold on to that like it is a dark secret. I will feel like I killed a person.
I think I'm just imagining somebody calling you saying, "Hey, Kale, we got this event. We'd like you to come to it." Then they hear this loud bang. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't. I just got shot in the leg. Oh man,
by who? That's not important. I should hang up and call an ambulance. I think I nicked my carotid. That's not in your leg. Is that in your leg? No, that's in your neck. What's the one in your leg?
The big blood vessel in your leg.
Yeah, there's a big one in there.
There is.
But
I'm bleeding out pretty bad here.
I don't know my anatomical terms.
Yeah,
maybe you should hang up and call the ambulance. You know my address.
Yeah, you know those numbers 644. You got to call in order to get an ambulance. The emergency number. 331 357
150 8675 309.
Maybe Jenny will come get me.
Speaking of guns, I showed you a picture of my silver Remington that I bought.
You did, yeah. That's awesome. What caliber is that?
120 volt.
120 volt. Wow, that's awesome.
I finally bought a blow dryer.
Right, because he's been growing his hair out. If you haven't seen Kale in a while, he's got a thick mane of hair.
It's true. I haven't gotten a haircut in about a year and a half.
Really? Yeah.
Probably longer than that. I don't know.
And now his hair is about mid calf now.
It grows really fast.
It does. It's amazing.
My hair does grow quite fast, genuinely, but it's not anywhere near that fast.
Mine does too. And I was actually considering growing mine out as well because I used to have hair down the small of my back.
I've seen pictures.
I was in a thrash metal band and progressive thrash metal. Anyway,
get it right.
And then I got conned into getting a haircut,
and it looks nice.
Thanks.
I think your haircut looks nice.
It feels nice.
There are times when I'm like, man, do I just want to shave my head? I think genuinely I ought to go in for at least a little bit of a trim. Yep. Just like clean up some split ends, even things out a little bit. Cause like my, the hair, since like I've been growing my hair out since the last time I buzzed my entire head. Right. Like I didn't shave my head, but I buzzed it down to, I think it had like the number 3 on the clippers.
I shaved my head.
That was
not this past October, the one before that.
But
because I was Kratos for Halloween.
And I've been growing my hair out ever since then. So my bangs are they appear to be significantly shorter than the hair on the back of my head. The truth is they're the same length, but the hair on the back of my head is coming from a place that is lower down.
Sure. I've been through it, man.
Like with my hair, especially for probably about a solid like 8 months in the middle there, my hair kind of gives an impression of a mullet.
Sure.
Just because of the way that it grows.
The fish
I think that has gone now. I didn't quite catch the
mullet, the fish. There's a fish called
a fish called a mullet. Okay. Yeah, I think I knew that, but I will move on.
Disregard. Because now you look like amateur poet weed dealer. It's kind of that's sort of the hairstyle you got going on now.
I'll take it.
All right.
I'll take that. But yeah, so I ought to get like a little bit of a trim at some point.
Sure. I'm doing that with my 12-year-old this weekend because he has hair dye. He calls it his helmet. and it's down about shoulder length.
Okay.
But it's looking at me. His helmet looks pretty homeless. I mean, it looks like when I'm walking places with him, it looks like maybe I found this kid under a bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he needs to get it evened out.
He might be a changeling that wandered out of the woods.
Right.
Renaissance Ireland. At some point I ought to go and do that. But yeah, I finally bought a blow dryer just because I was tired of turning up to work with wet hair.
You were tired of going to work unblown.
Yep. And who isn't sick of that, right?
Yeah. I mean, definitely.
But in any case, yeah, it's just like dry my hair off as best I could and then throw a hat on.
Sure.
And it was, it's getting too long. You can't get adequately dry with a towel. So time to get the blow dryer, and it works pretty dang well. You know what I always loved is because I didn't have a blow dryer. But when I had my
my thick mane of hair. I used to love to wash it and shower. Oh God, I gotta go to work, and then I'd wash my hair, and then I'd rush out, and then like halfway there, I feel the back of my head, and it was just a sheet of ice,
just frozen to you,
frozen.
I was kind of surprised at how quick and effective it is, like how little time it actually takes. For some reason, like I didn't think it would work quite so well, but it's actually very efficient. There's a reason why they are in widespread use. Surprise.
And they've improved hairdryer technology.
This one has like a ceramic grill on the front that has like keratin oil in it. And I guess through the process of the hot air going through that ceramic grill, some of the keratin oil comes out and gets into the air, and then it hits your hair. And
basically, it's coughing on you.
And it makes it shiny.
Right.
And I didn't know that was a thing you could do.
Right.
But I guess it is.
You know what? One other thing I learned about hair dryers, that if you feel like you've just kind of had enough, you can just take a bath with one.
It has to be an old one.
Yeah. Maybe the new ones don't.
I think that's been a thing for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Unless it's like really cheap and made in, not even made in China, like made in, I don't know, someone's backyard.
Right. A homemade
hair dryer.
Psychopath would make a homemade hair dryer.
I don't know.
That's just asking to burn to death.
I think just about anything you could possibly get in a store in the United States has probably got a ground fault interrupter on its plug-in.
Right.
So I
mean, if it doesn't, you can just take the one from your toaster.
That's true. Yeah. I guess I don't know where those are supposed to be on the toaster necessarily, because I don't think my toaster has that technology.
Mine does not.
But my toaster is also extremely cheap, and it's the same. I think I've had the same toaster the entire time I've had a toaster of my own.
And you know what? I have two toasters.
Such luxury.
I have two. One that's never come out of the box.
Yes.
But the thing is when I separated from my wife, and then I moved into that apartment, I'm like, oh, what do I need? I need these. I need the dish dryer. I need dish soap. I need dishes. I need, all that. And I kept, buying things piecemeal.
Yeah.
Like, okay. And then I'm at Target. I'm like, oh yeah, I need a mop. I need a broom. I got to take care of things. I need the Scotch-Brite pads. I need to, and then I bought a toaster, and then I got the toaster back to my apartment, and then I opened up the logical place to keep a toaster, and I went,
a toaster.
I already bought that. I did this and forgot.
So now you have two toasters.
Now I have two. So if there's anybody listening right now, that I will actually mail you a free toaster just to get it the fuck out of my apartment. If you want a free toaster, let us know.
I'm not gonna. I haven't looked at comments or messages in
years. Yeah.
So I don't know.
So you could probably tell us that you want a free toaster, and then you'll be completely ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably how it'll work.
That's the deal. You can say all you want.
Perhaps I feel like we should talk to one of our listeners in particular and be like, hey, can you do you want to become a admin on our page and just look at the comments or something?
Yeah, it's probably on a lot of them to look at.
To be entirely fair, I feel like Facebook used to make it so much easier to manage that shit.
Yeah.
And now I feel like having pages on Facebook and that sort of thing.
Right.
They've made it so much more progressively. They've made it more and more difficult to actually access pages that that you manage. And
it's just too
where are the comments, where are the messages on the post, it used to be so much more simple and user friendly, and then at some point they said fuck you, which I don't understand, because they made it less friendly for businesses. They made it harder for the people who would in theory be giving them money, and I don't understand.
They made it better for advertisers, I think is what they
probably.
did.
Yeah. I don't know. It's I just remember like whenever I set up the Facebook page for the podcast, I feel like it's somewhere around the time that happened. Mm-hmm. And then I went back and something had changed and went, well, I'm never looking at this again because this is annoying.
Yeah. I've kind of gotten away from social media a bit.
Don't know the last time that I actually opened up Facebook.
Yeah, I use Facebook Messenger because I have friends on there that maybe shouldn't have my phone number. And they, hey, I want to message you. Cool, send me a messenger. Yeah, I use that app quite a lot.
I used to use it a lot, and then most of what I used Facebook Messenger for, though, got moved over to Discord.
Sure.
And then eventually I think I just deleted. Maybe I still have Facebook Messenger on my phone, but I turned off notifications.
Right.
So that it won't have pop-ups anymore. Because I just stopped caring.
Right.
And I feel that way about Facebook in general. Like I probably over the last like 2 years, especially over the last year, like I almost never actually open Facebook. And like look at notifications. Because also, here's another gripe I have with Facebook.
Yeah.
And maybe there's somewhere I can go in settings to find this out. But like 90% of the notifications you get these days are shit that has nothing to do with you.
Right.
No one sent you a message. No one left a comment on your post. No one tagged you. It's someone you know posted. Here's a notification.
Yeah, stop telling me.
Why the fuck do I care?
Yeah.
The answer is it was always trash, but now it's even worse. It was always trash, but now it's garbage.
Was it us that was talking about it, or was I hearing somebody else talk about it? That MySpace was so great.
It was probably someone else because I never had a MySpace page.
Oh, you never had a MySpace page?
It might have been Matt.
Yeah, MySpace
might have been our friend Matt.
MySpace was 100% user friendly.
He was
directed toward the user.
Exactly. It was almost certainly either Matt or Drew because both of them were in the exact target demographic for MySpace.
Right.
In that both of them are, I think, about 7 years older than me.
Well, they were both born in 90, so
about 6-7 years older than me.
Yeah,
sounds right. I think both of them were very squarely in the MySpace era.
Right.
And I missed it by that much. It had basically just kind of died by the time social media sort of became a thing that was a possibility for me. Like, I think I joined Facebook when I was like 14, something like that. Really? Or maybe I was 13.
When did that go online? Was that 2008?
Facebook was 2008 or 9. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, it was earlier than that. I don't know. It depends on what version of it you're talking about. Because also, I think I was 14 in 2009.
You were 13 2009.
I don't know.
I always remember how old you are because you're a year younger than my oldest child.
Well, it depends on what part of 2009. Well, yeah. There's some parts of 2009 where I wasn't because my birthday's in March.
Right, you were 12.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know anything. Don't ask me to do math for years. Okay. I don't know how to do that. That's silly. Why is it base 12? That's silly.
Base 12? What's base 12?
I don't know.
Like old European math is base 12.
Well,
it was. Now it's base 10.
Yeah, I was thinking about time. I don't know why I said 12.
Because that's why we mark time like that. Because when we started marking time, it's also why you buy shit by the dozen.
We should talk about Marduk instead of time math. See, I think time math is so fucking weird for me because it's the only math I do on a regular basis. I have to do fucking time math every day.
You do.
And it's sort of screwed me up for doing regular addition and subtraction. Although I have come simply for the purpose of efficiency, and like if there's something where like fuck, I don't know, like looking at it where I'm like there's certain problems where I'm like, oh, that's easy, I can pick that apart in my head, and then there's other ones where I'm like, I have no idea what that is, like my brain's just not working right. There's like some sort of log jam, and I'm like, open up my time calculator, because there's several apps, I'm sure, but I have an app where it's it's a time calculator.
Worst video game from the 1980s.
Time calculator.
Yeah,
but you can put what's 1 minute 47 seconds minus 35 seconds, and it'll tell you.
Yeah, a minute 12 seconds
exactly. But that was one of the things that when I was in college, in our like TV class, that's one of the things that kept me from being able to and wanting to do like directing stuff, because live TV directing is, you have to be good at being able to do those kinds of time calculations on the fly. And I fucking can't do that. Like, you're looking at that countdown clock and you need to be able to say how much time there is left and like what needs to happen when. I can't do that shit. I can't do that.
See, that was a part of my early career in radio. I mean, you had to back time. You had to, you had to make sure that those wax cylinders were going to,
because you're
exact.
Sorry, we said you were turning 50. That was in leap years,
right? Yeah,
you're actually turning 200.
200 years old. By the way, speaking of Marduk, I was talking to somebody and I realized that there's a pattern to our black metal January, which is we start off with Kale's album. It'll be something that's like Panopticon, something that's it's got the blast beat, it's got the atonal screaming, it's got the really chaotic guitar,
but it's not strictly speaking black metal.
I mean, it's got all the flavors of black metal, but layered on top of it, you got a chamber quartet, you got some banjo, pedal steel,
lots of elements,
lots of elements, and it's beautiful, and the lyrics are it's a treatise on why we need to protect the environment, and then next week I bring a band, and they have a tendency to murder children for Satan.
Yeah, that seems to kind of be.
And then we go back to something thoughtful and entertaining from Kale.
Yeah, that's kind of how it's gonna go. Probably. I haven't actually listened to what we're going to talk about next week yet. I haven't listened to it yet, but I don't know if the guys from Marduk have literally murdered any children for Satan. Not that they are not without controversy.
Right.
The only one that I know of from their career, other than I'm sure the classic pearl clutching, conservative parents, that sort of thing, is last year, I think somewhere around the release of this album, there was a show where one of the band members was apparently hammered and started doing a Nazi salute on stage. I can't remember.
Wait a minute. A black metal band from Scandinavia doing a Nazi salute?
Crazy. But the band pretty much immediately fired him. I don't know if he was an original member of the band or not, but they got rid of him pretty quick. So
they're like, sorry, bud.
You can't do that anymore.
We can only do that in private. We can't do that on the stage.
We're not the underground band in the 90s that we once were.
Right.
Where you can get away with that. Like there was a time where a band could sustain itself while being outwardly horrifically racist.
Right. Now we have the internet.
You can't quite do that anymore. I don't really know how the rest of the band is politically. I kind of skimmed through the biography of the band. I actually skimmed through the biography of the band specifically to look like, are these guys like straight up Nazis? Like, are they?
They're not.
But it seems like they're not.
Right.
So that's not to say that there isn't anything sketchy throughout the history of their band.
Sure.
But if there is, I don't know.
Yeah. And it's not really on the internet. And I think it's one of those things where these guys are like, yes, we're a black metal band from Sweden, but I really would hate to have to get a day job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to keep this sustainable.
Right.
So there is that at least.
Yeah.
But they've been around for a long time.
1990.
This is their 15th studio album, Memento Mori, which by the way came out last year.
It did.
This is their newest studio album.
It was a studio album because they did this year release a live album.
Yes. So yeah, they've been doing it for a long time, and like I've never listened to Marduk before, and I was like, what am I in for? Like, what's their style? And I have to say, I was like, I think this is, in terms of classic black metal style,
right?
I think this is a really good, perhaps perfect, like happy medium between that sort of sparse and thin lo-fi production style,
right,
and something that is a bit more slick and clean.
Right. It walks a fine line.
I think they find a really good happy medium between, Euronymous' basement with the walls covered in eggshells, recording into something that was made by Mattel.
Yes. Versus recording at Abbey Road.
Yeah. I think it's a really good medium because like you listen to it and it's like, this is a black metal album.
Right.
But also it doesn't sound like dog shit.
Right.
So I really like that. And I was impressed by how quickly I got sort of pulled into the atmosphere of it. Even though it is, it's not the most minimalist album in the world.
It's not.
There are keyboards in here on occasion. There's, keyboards and samples and that sort of thing. Like there are extra elements that are brought in. But it's, compared to, like we were talking about, compared to something like Panopticon or Falls of Rauros, that is kind of maximalist, like let's bring in all these elements and make this as big as possible. It feels much more contained, generally speaking, but also it feels very tight and focused. And we know what the fuck this is. It's very fast and aggressive, and it almost never lets up, right up until probably like the last song. Yeah. The very last song, they dial it back just a little bit, and bring in probably the lion's share of the extra stuff is brought in on that last song. There are some strings, that are brought in on that track, but yeah, this is very much a classic black metal album. I didn't read too much about their history. I know they kind of started out as more of a death metal band, is my understanding of their history.
They were sort of, it was an overlap sort of situation where they were death metal, but they were also definitely all the elements of black metal as well.
mean, well, because it was just that time in Scandinavia, where you probably had these bands that were founded as death metal bands, and then hearing, what's going on in Norway and going like, oh, maybe we should bring some of that in. That's kind of interesting what's going on there with these mayhem fellas. I think that it was just kind of unavoidable in Scandinavia in the early 90s. Melodic death metal was not yet a thing. They started out as a bit more of a death metal band, but sort of became, I think, one of the few really notable Swedish black metal bands.
Right. Black is more of a Norway.
Yeah. Especially of that time period. Like you've got first wave bands that are all over the place,
Right.
from all over the Western world primarily, but they're American, they're British, they're Swiss, what have you, like
your favorite.
Yeah, like my favorite first wave black metal band.
Hellhammer.
Yeah, Hellhammer.
Yeah.
But from all over the place, and then that second wave really starts in Norway, and like that's the genesis for everything that comes after it, basically. But like when you think of that era, it's all Norway. And then in that same era, when you think of what extreme metal is going on in Sweden, it's death metal. Like there's like sort of a clean division of the Scandinavian peninsula of like, on the eastern half, we like death metal. On the western half, we like black metal. And to the point where there are two distinct death metal styles from Sweden. There's Gothenburg and there's Stockholm.
Right.
And they like that's how big death metal was in Sweden, is they'd have not just one regional scene, but two. And Norway was black metal central.
Right. In the late 80s and early 90s.
So I don't know much of anything else about the band. What's your experience with Marduk? What do you?
It's only peripheral. I've only heard it in passing. Never actually owned one of their albums, but I've always kind of been interested. I'd like to pick up something they had.
Yeah.
No, when these guys were starting out in the music scene and their albums were coming, across the pond there at all, they didn't come here.
Yeah.
This was I turned 20 in 1994, and by that time I hadn't actually seen. I only read about them or heard them in someone else's house. But that's about the extent of it. And
you just knew they'd been around for a while.
I knew they'd been around for a while, and then I fell off it. I forgot they existed for decades, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about this band. Oh my god, they put out a fucking album last year.
They're still making music.
I want to hear this. Yes.
I was trying to think also, because when the name got brought up, I was like, I feel like that's a thing in D&D. There's nothing called a Marduk, at least in 5th edition. There is some monster in 5th edition that I think sounds very similar. It's also hard to tell sometimes because there are a not insignificant number of metal bands that are named after monsters from D&D.
Right. I believe this is an actual pantheon.
He was a Mesopotamian god.
Right.
He was. I don't know what was his deal. He was the equivalent of Zeus.
Sure. Like he was the head of the.
Yeah, he's the leader of the pantheon,
so
as it would seem.
So Gozer would have been under him.
Sure. Yes. It says right here, master of the Gozerian. He was apparently the patron deity of the city of Babylon.
Sure.
So that's where the name comes from. But I knew it sounded familiar, like I had heard it before. Probably just because I had heard about this band before.
Right.
But that also made me. It was like, what other D&D or what other like bands are there that are like named after a thing in D&D? Kyus is one of them.
Kyus, or is it? It's not Kyus. It's Kyus.
I think it's Kyus. I think it's supposed to be Kyus.
There's Tiamat. Is that?
Tiamat is almost certainly a band.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. They're like a classic metal band, aren't they?
Classic death metal. Yeah.
And it's one of those things too, where some of it is like, okay, is this named after the thing from D&D because these guys are nerds, or is it named after a thing from folklore because these guys are nerds?
We've established they're nerds.
They're nerds.
But what kind of nerds?
What kind of nerds are they?
What kind of a nerd are you?
Are they history nerds or are they D&D nerds? Or are they both?
It's possible.
The two things are often, comorbid.
Comorbid.
That's what it is. To let's be honest, it's a comorbidity. It's not. It can be hard to tell. Like, is this a D&D thing, or do they just know about folklore? Because that's what most D&D monsters are from somewhere in folklore across the world.
A lot of D&D is just lifted.
Exactly. Right? There's not a lot of wholly original monsters, probably like, and the ones that there are the ones that are copyrighted. You've got your beholders, your mind flayers, and so on and so forth.
Things of that nature.
Those are copyrightable and have their names and designs owned by Wizards of the Coast at this point.
Who was it that came up with the Drow?
The Drow?
Was that from folklore, or is that?
I mean, dark elves are a thing,
right?
Like the basic concept of you've got elves, but they bad. Like that's a folklore thing. But I think like the Drow in particular, as D&D players would understand them, I think it was either Gary Gygax or it was Ed Greenwood. I'm not sure which one of them it was, like, or if it was something that like Gary Gygax came up with and sort of threw out, and then Ed Greenwood was like, I'm going to make a whole deal about this, because Ed Greenwood is the father of the Forgotten Realms,
right?
Where the Drow are probably like most of the stuff that a D&D player knows about the Drow is from the Forgotten Realms. Mm-hmm. Like he's I guess it was R.A. Salvatore that wrote the Drist books, but
right.
On the foundations of stuff that Ed Greenwood had already come up with. And there was probably some original stuff that Gary Gygax and the early old guard of D&D had come up with.
Dris Duardin. Is it Duardin?
Yeah, it's Duardin.
Dris Duardin. Okay.
It's kind of interesting. Like, I feel like the hate for that character has died down in the last few years.
Yeah.
Because I remember like when I started playing D&D with 5th edition, people hated Drist. They're like all my friends who knew about D&D like hated that character. I think it was because like before like Critical Role became a really huge thing and the thing that people knew about D&D from, it was books like that people were familiar with. And so everyone would come to the table and be like, I'm going to make a character that's like Dris Duardin. And it would be the same exact, template of him. He's a moody, like ranger or rogue, and he's from a race that's normally evil, but he's good, but he's not happy about it. Like, and so is this template of a character that bothered people more than the character itself. I've never read any of those books. I understand they're fine.
Yeah.
Like, and that he's he's an interesting character. And like, I find the Drow like an interesting sort of concept. Mm-hmm. Some of the lore is like a little like, all right, you're trying a little too hard to be edgy here. But you're not doing it in a fun way, the way that like Warhammer does.
Right.
Like with their dark elves, and good God. Because that's a bit of a blind spot for me. I've gotten to a part in Rogue Trader now where you're dealing heavily with the Dark Eldar, which are dark elves, but space.
Right.
And they're the edgiest thing that I think I've ever come across in a video game. Both figuratively and literally, because everything they wear has a lot of spikes on it. There's
a lot of edges. They're
Cenobites, but with ponytails and pointy ears. Is basically how I describe them. But it's I'm still enjoying that game, by the way.
I'm sure.
It's got a lot of rough edges. Like there's a lot of glitches and bugs, and there's a lot of things about the way that the combat system works where I'm like, I don't understand how, like, I have no idea how damage is calculated.
Okay.
I have no clue. All I know is sometimes when I push the right sequence of buttons, the Sister of Battle can do about 720 damage in one turn.
Okay.
Which sounds really significant, but then you also get into battles where the boss will have, like apparently the final boss of the game, depending upon what difficulty you play on, can have upwards of 20,000 HP.
Wow.
But you can also have character abilities that do, like I said, a truly batshit insane amount of damage in a single turn.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how any of it works. I don't understand how any of it works. I just know I press the buttons in the right order and lots of big numbers happen. And like there are so many stacking systems and abilities, and I have forgotten what, like, I look at them one time and I'm like, sure, I'll put that on my character.
Yeah.
And then, 3 fights later, I'm like, why did that just happen? Why have I been able to take 4 turns in a row on the same character? What's the deal with that? So yeah, it's an interesting game system, especially compared to like coming off of Baldur's Gate 3, where it's just 5th edition D&D. And I'm like, I know this. I know how to break this. And then Rogue Trader is like, I have no idea what this is, and I don't know if I have broken it or if this is just the way it's supposed to be.
Because you never actually played Warhammer.
No, but also this is based on a tabletop RPG versus 40K, which is a tabletop war game.
Right.
The rules of which are very different. Mm-hmm. But you are correct. I have never played the miniature war game because who's got the time to paint all those minis? Not me.
Or the money.
I had, how many D&D minis I have.
Right.
I have painted a handful of goblins and a bunch of kobolds. Right. And I have not painted a single mini since then. And those were used for stuff 2 years ago. So there was a point where I was like, I'm going to pick up mini painting. And then I didn't get around to it.
Right. You did some. You had the magnifying glass.
Yeah. I mean, I've got the supplies. I could pick it back. The paint is probably no good anymore. But I could pick it back up at any time. But it just seems like a pain in the ass. And anyhow, Marduk.
Yes.
A bunch of probably nerds
who really like to write lyrics about being dead and death and coffins, and
of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be weird going into a black metal album and the lyrics were all about puppies. That would be strange. I'd listen to it.
I would listen to the shit
for
out of it.
sure, but it would be strange.
It would be.
I've never purposefully sought out. They call it unblack metal. I've never purposefully sought that out. Where it's like, I don't think they're meant to be like explicitly Christian bands, but there are some like bands that are explicitly like Christian bands. I don't know if that's the genre as a whole, but it's meant to be like musically stuff that is musically black metal, but featuring lyrics that is not, the typical Satanism and genocide and whatnot. I've never specifically sought out any of those bands. Also, it's called unblack metal because they knew you can't call it white metal.
No, you cannot call it white metal.
They knew that.
I'm sure that's a thing somewhere.
I mean, apparently that one guy from Marduk,
the unemployed bass player,
or whoever he was. I don't remember which member of the band it was.
He was their zither player.
Their zither player.
Yeah.
He can join. He can form a band with Phil Anselmo, who also got hammered and started doing racist shit.
Right.
Although he didn't, get kicked out of anything. People were just angry at him.
Right.
People angry at Phil Anselmo?
No.
What?
He's in a new band now.
Is he?
Yeah.
What's it called?
Slayer 2.0.
It's literally called Slayer 2.0?
Well, so far.
Why?
Because Kerry King's the guitar player.
Come on, Kerry.
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead and start another band. That's fine. Don't call it Slayer 2.0. That's stupid.
Yeah.
That's dumb. I I hope that's just like a work in progress name.
I think it is.
Even if it is, though, that feels dumb to be like, because you're basically acknowledging like, I have no more original ideas. I'm just going to keep doing Slayer.
Well, I mean, I that might actually be true. I mean, back in, the early 1980s, he and Jeff Henneman, they found a thing that they did very well.
And they decided to just keep doing it.
They decided to keep doing it. And in fact, they decided they had some interesting ideas of the movie, the album, Musica Diabolica or whatever.
Okay.
They say, hey, we're going to sort of do a new metal thing.
Change it up a little bit.
Yeah. Yes. Guess who didn't love that?
Everyone.
Everyone didn't love that.
Well, but I feel like if you ever wanted to do that, founding a whole new band is the opportunity. Right. Like you that's your opportunity to be like, those different ideas I once had. Now I can do something with those.
But maybe he just didn't have them.
Maybe they were gone.
Maybe all of his ideas were Slayer ideas.
They went away like they were washed away like tears in the rain. Which was blood, by the way. It was raining blood.
Right.
Slayer song. Dun, dun, dun.
I've seen Attack Panteras at the shoulder of Mars.
Metallica beams glittering in the. Can't remember.
Silly.
So this is album. Oh God.
We're almost there, man.
Memento Mori by Marduk. Does this album slap?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely does. Like we were saying before, it's got a pretty relentless pace.
Yeah.
There's not much slow moments on this album.
You know what I love it? The blast beats, make that speed up, and a lot of times the guitar is very, very simple.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, nothing insane, nothing crazy, but just, very fast, classically black metal, tremolo picking, very,
or just power chords sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes. Score, I found like 4 reviews that actually had numbers on. Yep. Came out to 73.5. Most of that is because some guy from Sputnik gave it a 50%. So that kind of brought the median down a little bit. 2 of the other reviews were 90s.
Right.
And one I think was an 85. So that one guy's a little bit of an outlier, but I couldn't find any more numbers. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite song on this album?
My favorite song in this album, okay, Shovel Beat Scepter.
It's pretty good.
I can't tell if it's my favorite song in this album or I don't like it at all.
That's interesting.
It's either one of those two because I listened to it twice. It's
notable.
It's very notable. It just seems like they were getting kind of artsy there with the. With that, I mean, I did like that. Also, I did love "Heart of the Funeral." That's a great song.
I picked "Coffin Carol."
Coffin Carol. Okay.
Yeah,
it's like Christmas Carol. But.
Yes. Although the first time I saw it, I was like, "Who is this Carol woman?" And,
it's me, Coffin Carol.
Yeah. Would you like a coffin?
I've got
come on in here.
I've got bronchitis. I'm Coffin Carol.
Somebody get me my albuterol.
Sorry.
There you are.
There we are.
There she is. Coffin Carol. What medal do you bestow upon this album like Maz Kanata to Chewbacca?
Man, it's right on the cusp for me. It is right on. I'm going to give it an extremely high silver.
I would agree. I don't know if I would call it extremely high for me, but definitely I would say a high silver for sure. I mean, this was enjoyable front to back. There was never a moment where I was going like, stop that.
Yeah. No.
Like there are some albums, there are some albums that I really like that even then there are moments where I'm like, don't stop that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Quit it. But listening to this, I didn't really feel any moments like that. It was just good, well paced, well executed. well produced for its style anyway.
Right. Not overproduced.
Yeah,
not underproduced.
Good ass black metal. So yeah, Silvers. Next week we're going to be going with something that is a bit of a fusion. It's been a little while since we've talked about this band, a blackened doom metal band or a doomed black metal band. Goes by the name of Mizmor.
Oh, Mizmor. I like Mizmor.
The album from last year, Prosaic. So that'll be next week.
All right.
Until you hear from us then, why don't you go ahead and follow us on the Facebook page that's hard for us to navigate to,
right?
Or Twitter, as it was once known, and give us a follow on either of those platforms, or go ahead and subscribe to our feed on whatever service you're using to listen to us.
And also, if you're our mutual friend and you're willing to do the aforementioned moderating of,
we won't pay you.
We won't pay. We'll pay you with kindness and perhaps treats.
I could maybe like, hand over some like $5 on Sundays.
Sure, yeah. Don't give her any sugar though, please.
I can't pay her in candy.
Can't pay her in candy
because I will suffer for that.
As fun as it is
for you
to watch her become a cartoon character.
It's fun.
Yeah.
In any case, she knows what she did.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Bronze Medalist Podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
Congratulations.